Hey Sammy.
G'day mate, how you going?
Not bad, what are you up to?
I'm just having a look at some fly gear. I've been getting into fly fishing over the last few months, and I guess just was interested in why we fly fish and how it all works.
Well, fly fishing's a really interesting way to fish. I guess the simplest way of describing it is it's a delivery system. The flies you're looking at there are trout flies, and as you can see, some of them are really, really small. They weigh practically nothing. There's no way you'd be able to cast them out with a conventional spinning rod. So fly fishing, the system of fly fishing was developed to enable you to cast these little tiny flies out, which is what the trout feed on. I mean, fly fishing's developed over the years. It's now, for saltwater fish and up to game fish and marlin and all that sort of stuff, but the process is still the same. Even a fairly large fly like that is still way too light to cast with a spinning rod, so you still need to have the basic fly principles, the delivery system, to enable you to get the fly out to where the fish are.
Okay, and so looking at the gear, I mean, if we take a look at the rod, what are the rods all about?
Well, fly rods are specifically designed to be part of this delivery system I was talking about. So in this case, for most sort of trout fishing and general estuary type of light work, you've got a fairly long rod. Most of them are around about the 9-foot mark. This one's a 6-weight rod, so it makes it ideal for most trout fishing and light estuary type of fishing. And I guess the defining characteristic of a fly rod is that it's fairly flexible. And that's got to do with maximising how you cast it and how the rod interacts with the line to get the fly out there. You can see that the butt assembly is different from a conventional sort of rod, so you've got your reel just sits down here, and you've got these other guides which are designed to let the fly line, which is quite a thick line, pass through. And
so the reels then, how do the reels work and how do they differ to conventional fishing reels?
In their most basic sense, a fly reel is probably the simplest reel you can get. It's basically just a line storage device. It's a direct drive reel, so one turn of the handle means one turn of the spool. These ones have got a fairly basic sort of little drag system in them, and they're basically just used to store the line.
Makes sense.
And obviously you can go up to the bigger sort of stuff like some quite complicated complex reels for marlin fishing or for bone fishing or barra fishing, anything like that, but the principle is the same. They're a very simple reel. They haven't really changed that much in their basic design, and they're a lot less complicated than your standard old spinning reel.
And so then going through the leader and the lines and the connections, that's probably one thing that when I first started was a little daunting and a little complex. Could you just run through how they all work?
It can seem a bit complicated, and I think a lot of people think that fly fishing is a really complicated aspect of the fishing game, but it's really not when you think about it. So what you've got here, you've got what's called backing, and that's line that goes onto your reel. It's usually sort of braided line or a Dacron style of line. With trout fishing, for this outfish, it's designed basically for trout fishing. You only need like 20-pound line and say 50 yards of it. So you connect that to your spool, wind it on, and then you've got your fly line, which is probably the key part of the whole thing. The line is what enables you to get those little tiny flies out. So as you can see, it looks completely different from any other type of line, and that's because it's basically can be seen as a sinker. So it's actually the weight that enables you to get those little tiny flies out there. So it's got different design aspects to it than any other type of line. This one here is a 6-weight double taper line. So that means it's got 2 tapers, so in the middle of it it's thick, and then both sides of it come down to be thinner. And what happens is that you connect it to your backing with a nail knot, and then you wind that on, and then you connect your leader to the other end with another nail knot. With a double taper line, you've got a thick bit in the middle, and it comes down to thinner, so when you're casting, that thick bit is like the weight that enables you to cast your line out. And then you see here we've got the leader. A leader is another important part of the whole process. It enables the smooth delivery of the fly. When we're fishing for brim or flathead with a leader, it's just basically one strand of line. With a fly fishing leader, you want to have what's called a tapered leader, so you've got a heavier section at the end that's connected to the line, and it comes down to a narrow section. And what that does is, when you cast your fly out, you want your fly to sort of unravel. That heavier butt section of the leader makes a nice smooth transition.
Sure, okay, makes sense.
And then you just tie your fly to the end of that. So, you know, a lot of people think that fly fishing is really complicated and complex and difficult, but it's not. It's, when you think about it, it's a simple and very effective delivery system to get those little tiny flies out to where the fish are.
And it's a really fun way to fish.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.